Welcome back to Life in the Stands podcast. We got Jake and Zach on the podcast today, and we have another great episode queued up for you.
Yeah, so the NBA trade deadline is approaching on February 6th. I believe it's at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So Zach and I decided to hop into the NBA trade machine to give our thoughts and ideas on what could happen or what we want to see happen.
All right, so we each came up with 3 ideas for the NBA trade machine vendor, and I'm going to start with a trade for Zion. Lots of talk around the Pelicans and what they're going to do going into this trade deadline. So I have the Pelicans trading with the Hornets. So sending Zion to Charlotte, and in return, they'll send back Miles Bridges and Grant Williams and a couple of first rounders to send Zion to Charlotte to play with LaMelo, because LaMelo is such a good lob passer. I think the two of them together would be elite and very fun to watch. So Zion over to Charlotte for Miles Bridges, Grant Williams, and a couple of first rounders.
You say 3 first rounders out of that?
I'll say two.
Okay, because I think it's going to be a simple divorce for the Pelicans, and I think teams are expecting it, so I don't know how much value you're actually going to get out of Zion at this point. And I don't know if you get any value out of Bridges and Grant Williams. I think you're really just looking at the pick compensation out of that trade. However, the idea of LaMelo Ball and Zion, I think, is a right step for the Hornets. But the Hornets don't make any of the right steps, so I don't see it happening at all.
Those are all fair things. It was just really fun to think about LaMelo and Zion being on the floor together, to be honest.
Yeah, the passing, like the lobs. Is that what you're thinking about, the lobs?
For sure.
Yeah, but let's talk about this, though. Zion, in his post-game interview, that is not one of the teams he mentioned. So if he goes to Charlotte, I think it would serve him right, honestly, after being lazy his first couple of years. But we don't talk about it.
Yeah, it might be kind of funny. Because I also haven't heard anything where he's come out and said like he's not going to re-sign with a certain team if he gets traded to certain places, right? He's going to enter free agency probably either way, but if he joins the team and makes an impact, I don't know. You never know what happens.
It's basically what every superstar does nowadays. But let's move on to a trade with the Suns and the Bulls. I have Zach Lavine and Torrey Craig going to the Phoenix Suns in exchange for Bradley Beal and a second-round pick to the Bulls.
Yeah, you don't want to elaborate on that at all? You just want my opinion right away?
I want your opinion first because, I'll let you go.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question with Zach Lavine and the Suns is like, what is he going to give you that Bradley Beal doesn't, I guess? I mean, like, yes, like he has the higher averages and he's having a better season than Bradley Beal is having right now, but he's going to go to Phoenix and still be a third option at best. So he's not going to get the shots that he's getting in Chicago. So, I mean, it could happen because I do think Lavine is on the move either way this trade season. He's been talked about over the last year or two now as someone they might move, and they've wanted to move and then couldn't. Now he's come back, he's having a career year. So it's like, okay, maybe we can get some trade value out of this, but he does feel like he's going to go somewhere this year. I'll give you that.
My thing is, I think this trade is just useful for this change of scenery. Like Zach Lavine in Chicago, like you just talked about. Bradley Beal seems to not be working out in Phoenix. He just got moved to the bench. They're both bad contracts.
Dude, I even saw stuff about Devin Booker being traded. That's a whole other conversation, but...
Yeah, I forget who said they wanted him. I think the Rockets, maybe?
Yeah, I think so. But I'll one up you. So you said it was Lavine and Craig, right? And 2 first rounders?
Lavine and Craig, and then Bradley Beal in a second round go to the Bulls.
Okay. So I have a similar trade, except it's with the Bulls and the Heat. And I think Lavine and Craig and 2 first rounders could go for Jimmy Buckets.
You think they would take just that, though? I think either first need to be in that, or you need to add, I don't even know, maybe even Alonzo at that point.
You think Alonzo? I mean, I feel like that would be a lot. But even if Pat Riley wants to act like he has the upper hand in the situation, the way the league works right now, he doesn't. Because Jimmy Butler can barely play the rest of the season, do whatever he wants, do just enough to make sure that he's getting his contract. He can hit the player option button next year and make $45 million. And then he can do the exact same thing all of next season. So what do you if you're the Heat, what are you going to do with that in your team? You have to get rid of it. You have to get...
I think that option's like $52 million, brother. That's a lot of money.
Even worse, So it's like Jimmy Butler has all the power right now. And honestly, he kind of has a point. The Heat have not kept up with what the other top teams in the East have gone out and done.
Yeah, Jimmy by himself. I shouldn't say by himself, but Jimmy with Bam because Hero was out for the one playoff run they had to the finals. They made the finals twice. I believe one of the years was the bubble, lost to the
Yeah,
Lakers. One of the other years, I believe, who was it? The Nuggets.
Nuggets. Yeah, Nuggets championship.
And the Nuggets were rolling. That was Jokic's prime years. He's still in his prime. Don't get me wrong. Don't be mad at me, y'all. But
But maybe
that
Aaron
was,
Gordon's prime years, Jamal Murray's.
I would say Jamal Murray for sure. Especially since he's not been able to keep up lately, to be honest. But he did drop 45 2 nights ago. So we'll see
True.
what happens. But we're going to move to the next trade that I think is actually the most interesting trade idea that I have. Kyle Kuzma to the Grizzlies in exchange for Marcus Smart, Vince Williams Jr., and a 2026 first rounder that might be lottery protected to the Wizards.
This one is interesting because I think you talked about a change of scenery earlier, and Kyle Kuzma is a guy that could use a change of scenery no matter where he's going, and he can be on a contending team and contribute too. I like the trade overall, honestly. I just think maybe with where the Wizards are at though too, Kuzma being proud, I think he's their second highest paid player. They might be looking for a little more, especially like with where the Wizards are at, they might take less players for more draft compensation at the end of the day too. But I like to see Kyle Kuzma on the move.
Yeah, I mean, here's how I look at it. Kuzma would be a money dump for the Wizards. They'd probably buy out Marcus Smart if I had to guess. And the other part of that is more than likely, like they're in the rebuild with Alex Sarr. They have to keep Jordan Poole after that contract that he got. If Kuzma goes to the Memphis Grizzlies are already a playoff team when Ja Morant is healthy.
For sure.
They got Ja Morant healthy, Desmond Bane healthy, Jaren Jackson Jr. healthy. Even if you have to get rid of Brandon Clark in that trade, if you replace Vince Williams or somebody, if you have to get rid of Brandon Clark, who's your backup four man, to get Kyle Kuzma to play the four or even the
Yeah,
three
yeah.
with Edie at the five, you
Right.
have a playoff caliber team and you add to that wing position that you've been missing out on.
Yeah. Edie is what has changed that Memphis team, to be honest. Because if they, like Jaren Jackson Jr., he wasn't just like your stereotypical five that's just going to do Zach Edie things, like do Jonas Valanciunas things, do Steven Adams things, like just do Yusuf Nurkic, mess up that name, Yusuf Nurkic. But yeah, like they needed someone to kind of fill that role. And then, like you said, if they go out and they get a high performing wing that can fill that role specifically, even if he's coming off the bench, yeah, the Grizzlies could be dangerous. They could be dangerous.
And they're already one of the deepest teams in the league, too. So
Yeah.
that bench help on top of maybe getting rid of one or two players that are actually in your rotation for a guy that could be a third superstar, I
Yeah.
think is worth it.
I will say that sometimes bench depth, though, doesn't mean as much in the playoffs because even if you have 11 guys that can play, you're only going to end up playing your top eight anyway. So, like sometimes having extra depth isn't quite as nice as having eight guys that are where the 4 through 8 are better than the 7 through 11, whatever it may end up being.
The Celtics just did it last year being top heavy.
Right, yeah, exactly. So as long as everyone stays healthy, like that's the thing. But I'll move into my last trade prediction here. And speaking of a team getting a little bit deeper, actually, so now that I just made that comment, I'm going to rebuttal myself. But I'm going to have Wiggins on the move from Golden State. So I think they get rid of Andrew Wiggins. I went back and forth if this would be Draymond or Wiggins, and for some reason, I just feel like they won't trade Draymond. I just feel like they won't do it because there's been so many opportunities to, and they haven't.
To what team, though?
So I think Wiggins goes to the Utah Jazz, and I think the Warriors get back Walker Kessler and Colin Sexton
For just Wiggins?
for Wiggins and a second.
For just Wiggins in a second?
I think
Hell
so.
no.
Or maybe all right, so maybe more pick compensation
Okay,
because you're right. It's the Jazz and it's Danny Ainge.
let me fix it. Not just because it's Danny Ainge. Let me fix it. Walker Kessler, I believe the asking price for him was at least 2 first rounders. So Wiggins, you can at least get rid of one of them. Change the second rounder to a first rounder. And then you probably need to add in, I'll probably butcher this name, Brandon Podemski, or however you pronounce his
Yeah,
last name.
Kudzinski. Yeah,
Like you need to add another young, valuable player for them to take that trade.
you think? All right, so even if it's not Pods, I mean, it could be another young player on their roster. They got a couple of them.
It could, but you lowballed that one. I like the trade idea, but you lowballed that for
Oh
sure.
yeah, so maybe lowball on the picks. And the Warriors have said that they don't want to mortgage their future right? That's kind of been like a theme from some of the conversations, the press conferences that are coming out from there. So I do think Wiggins, again, though, needs a change of scenery.
But I don't think that trade helps anybody. I think if they're going to trade that kind of package I just said, it would be for Markkanen and not Kessler and Sexton. Sexton doesn't fit that team. Kessler's a rim protector. Yeah, they might need one, but I think they're looking at a different angle of that. Whether it's like a Clint Capella or a Valanciunas, I think you can get them for cheaper than Walker Kessler. Walker Kessler's so young that like they're gonna have an asking price that's ridiculous because it's Danny Ainge. So I think you're looking at a Lowry Markkanen situation over there because they tried it in the offseason. They did try
That's
it.
true. That's true. That's fair.
But let's hop to another young team, two young teams, to trade between the Thunder and the Brooklyn Nets. So in our in-person episode, we talked about how there's so many picks for both of these teams, right? So within this trade, the Nets actually gather a bunch more picks out of this and are kind of stockpiling, just like the Thunder have the last couple of years. And the trade specifically is Isaiah Joe, Nikola Topic, 3 first-rounders, and 2 second-rounders to the Nets in exchange for Cameron Johnson. Now, I know you're going to say, why are you giving up this much for one player? There might be a second player thrown in that, and it might be Cam Thomas because the Nets don't want Cam Thomas either. However, what they got for Mikal Bridges is going to be the same or pretty similar compensation to what they're going to get for Cam Johnson. Now, the Indiana Pacers are in the market for Cam Johnson as well, but they cannot offer what the Thunder have because the Thunder have a shit ton of first and second round picks to just throw around. And I think that makes them better. We talked about the Thunder going for the right fit. I think he is the right fit because it gives them a stretch lengthy wing.
Yeah, those are fair statements. The pick compensation is really steep, but again, if you think about it, with the way Cam Johnson has played this year, that compensation is probably going to be really similar to the Mikal Bridges trade to the Knicks. And that was, I mean, remind me how many first round picks that was? Was that
too many? Like it was like 4 or 5.
I think it was 4 or 5 like first round picks to send Mikal Bridges to the Nets or from the Nets to the Knicks. With Cam Johnson, I don't think it'd be 4 or 5 first round picks. I think you said 3. Might be reasonable. The Thunder do have a lot more second round picks than first round picks too, so I could see them even going the route of like, we'll give you 6 second round picks and 2 firsts.
Yeah, and even then, like a lot of those
trade bait, so then they can turn around and flip it if they needed to too.
But a lot of those second round picks that are going to be gathered up by the Nets are also going to be like cash drop off. So they'll open up their salary for a guy that they might want to sign in the future. Like if they get, for a random example, if they get Cooper Flag and he becomes a superstar like everybody thinks he's going to be, they're going to draw a lot more attention to that market because they are in New York. So freeing up that money with the second rounders, I think, is what their mentality would be here. And on top of it, you still get the first rounders that you might use to get a guy like Cooper Flag.
And you really got to compete in New York now at this point because the Knicks look good.
Knicks are rolling. I think we know who won that trade.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the Timberwolves, yikes. The NBA is a top-heavy league.
I'll say, before we close out, do we think we're going to have actually like real crazy trades going on this year? Like some years it's quiet, some years it blows up, some years it's just kind of like, okay, you're trading draft picks because you're rebuilding. Like, how do you think this trade deadline is going to go?
I don't know. I feel like it's going to be quiet because we've had some ones that have blown up in recent years. I feel like it's been rocky in the NBA. A lot of movement. So I feel like it's going to be a little quiet, although it's hard to imagine that at least like there's going to be at least 2 or 3 of these big name guys that are going to be on the move. Feels like Bradley Beal's going to be on, like Bradley Beal's going to go. Zach Lavine is going to go. Like Zion probably going to go. Like it feels like a couple of these guys are just at the end of their.
And it's kind of unfortunate. The guy I wanted to see leave, and now they're on a win streak from the Kings, is De'Aaron Fox. I wanted to see De'Aaron Fox go somewhere else, but now the Kings are on a win streak with Doug Christie at the helm.
Right.
So they won't move anybody, guaranteed. If they will, it's to build around the team they already have. But I think the main 2 teams you have to look for is the Thunder with their picks, because we're all waiting for it. It doesn't take a whole lot but common sense to figure that out.
Yep.
And possibly the Lakers, because we don't know if Pelinka's going to be on vacation or not during the deadline again.
Yeah, all the above. And even the Sixers, because we do have a lot of first round, a lot of picks out there. So maybe we go acquire more of them if we trade someone away, because I've even seen talks about it happening. But This has been another episode of Life in the Stands podcast. We want to thank everyone again for watching and listening. Remember to like and subscribe. Let us know down in the comments what trades you think would be crazy to see in the NBA this year based off the rumors you've heard before the trade deadline. And we'll see you on the next episode.